So the Path Does Not Die by Pede Hollist. Chapter 12. By now, Fina has built a new life in the United States with her fiancé, Cammy, and their wedding is set to be one of the grandest African immigrant celebrations in Washington, D.C. Word spreads quickly, and it becomes less about love and more about community prestige. Africans and Caribbeans from across the city and beyond prepare to attend, whether officially invited or not. The guest list balloons. Friends bring cousins, uncles and aunties bring siblings, neighbors bring entire families. Soon, nobody knows exactly who is coming, but everyone is sure they will be there. The bride and groom-to-be are both thrilled and dazzled by the attention and support. It's a dream wedding, a testament to their success in America. And nothing can dampen their spirits, or so they think. The weeks leading up to the wedding are filled with preparation and excitement. There are traditional ceremonies to organize, henna tattoos to apply, clothes to buy and fittings to schedule. At the center of it all is Fina, the almost Mrs. Cameron Parker. She dreams of walking down the aisle in a beautiful white dress, exchanging vows with the love of her life, celebrating with friends and family. The wedding is set to be a lavish affair, a blend of Sierra Leonean and American traditions, a testament to Fina's journey and her hopes for the future. But as the big day approaches, a sense of unease settles over Fina. The joy of the upcoming nuptials is overshadowed by the knowledge that her sister Issa will not be present. Fina had hoped against hope that Issa would receive a visa, but it wasn't meant to be. Issa was staying behind in Freetown, working as a petty trader, saving every penny to try again next year. On the day of the wedding, the church is beautifully decorated. Guests start arriving, dressed in their finest clothes, some wearing designer labels. They fill the church, creating a sea of excited chatter. There's a palpable energy in the air, a sense of community, of shared heritage, of success story. As Fina prepares to walk down the aisle, she catches sight of her reflection in the window. She looks stunning in her cream silk gown, her Nubian-style headpiece glinting under the soft light. She takes a deep breath, trying to steady her nerves. Today is supposed to be the happiest day of her life, yet she can't shake off a feeling of profound sadness. Her parents are gone, her beloved sister Issa is absent, and the only family present is Edna, her foster sister. As she walks towards the altar, surrounded by the warmth of the congregation singing joyful songs, Fina's heart feels heavy. She's grateful for Cammy, for the life they've built, for the love that brought them together. But she can't help but think of Issa, of her struggles, of her dreams. Dreams as modest as a computer class, a far cry from the opulence surrounding Fina, a painful reminder of the gap that separates them. As she stands at the altar, exchanging vows with Cammy, surrounded by hundreds of guests, Fina's thoughts drift back to Sierra Leone. She remembers the lush landscapes, the vibrant markets, the comforting rhythms of her homeland. She thinks of her parents, their faces etched with worry, their hands calloused but loving, their voices a mix of pride and fear as they sent her away for a better life. She pictures little Issa, her eyes bright with curiosity, her laughter echoing in the corridors of her memory. And then there's Edna, her constant support, her anchor in the storm, the one who understood the silent language of their shared past. Fina feels a lump in her throat. Despite the distance and the years, Sierra Leone remains an integral part of who she is. The memories, the emotions, the people, they're all woven into the fabric of her being. Suddenly, a man stands up. All eyes turn towards him. He holds up a marriage certificate. There's a stunned silence. Then he speaks, his voice ringing with authority. He says, "Stop this wedding. This woman is my wife." Gasps ripple through the church. Whispers buzz like angry bees. Fina feels her heart sink. Her blood runs cold. It can't be happening, can it? Her mind races. Who is this man? How did he get here? How did he know? Questions swirl unanswered, leaving Fina trembling, lost in a maze of confusion and fear. In the ensuing commotion, Fina and Cammy slip out of the church unnoticed. They retreat to the vestry, away from the prying eyes of hundreds of guests. Cammy is livid. His face is pale, his eyes flashing with anger and hurt. He confronts Fina, his voice shaking with rage. How could you not tell me? How could you do this to me? Fina, shaken and trembling, tries to explain. She tells Cammy about her past, about the marriage of convenience she entered into years ago, not for love, but as a means to secure her green card. She shows him the divorce decree, hoping to prove that their marriage is over. But Cammy is not appeased. His anger intensifies. To him, it's not just about a piece of paper. It's about trust, about the deception, about the secrecy. He feels humiliated, not just for himself, but for his mother, his family, his community. Fina's attempts to calm him down fall on deaf ears. Her words are lost in the maelstrom of his anger. How could you lie to me? How could you bring me to the altar when you knew? Cammy's voice echoes in the small room, bouncing off the walls, amplifying the hurt. I didn't know what to do, Fina whispers, tears streaming down her face. I was scared. Scared of what? What were you scared of? Cammy's tone is sharp, accusatory. Of losing you, of ruining everything we've built together, Fina says, her voice breaking. You could have told me. We could have figured it out together. Cammy's anger seems to soften slightly, but it's quickly replaced by a deep sadness. The future they had planned, the life they were going to build together, it all seems to be crashing down around them. The wedding, the celebration, the joy, it's all turned to dust. What are we going to do now? Cammy asks, his voice cracking. As Cammy paces the room, wrestling with his emotions, Fina sinks to her knees. Her body trembles. She feels utterly defeated, not just by the man who disrupted the wedding, but by the weight of her own past. Suddenly, a sob escapes her lips. It's a small sound, but in the quiet room, it's deafening. The dam breaks and she weeps uncontrollably. Why me? She cries out, her voice hoarse with anguish. Why am I cursed? Why does misfortune follow me everywhere? Her tears flow freely, mingling with the dust of disappointment and dashed dreams. She feels trapped, not just by her past, but by the consequences of her actions. The man who disrupted the wedding may have exposed her secret, but it's her past that continues to haunt her. I'm sorry, she whispers, the words tumbling out in a rush. I'm sorry, Cammy. I'm so sorry. Her apologies echo in the room, seeking solace, finding none. Edna finds Fina crying uncontrollably. She kneels beside her, her foster sister, her confidant, her rock. She doesn't speak, doesn't ask questions. She simply sits there, offering her presence as comfort. Finally, Fina looks up, her eyes red and swollen. What do we do now, Edna? My wedding, my life, it's ruined. Edna's gaze is steady, her voice soft but firm. It's not ruined, Fina. It's just changed. You're still loved. You're still strong, and you're not alone. She helps Fina to her feet, guiding her out of the vestry, away from the wreckage of the wedding, towards the uncertainty of what comes next. As they navigate the crowd, Fina's heart heavy with shame and disappointment, she thinks about her parents, about Issa, about the life that could have been. She feels the weight of her past pressing down on her, threatening to consume her. But amidst the despair, a flicker of determination ignites within her. She will find a way to move forward, to pick up the pieces, to rebuild her life. She may be bruised, she may be battered, but she will not be broken, because as Edna has always told her, the path does not die, it merely changes course. The air hung thick with unspoken words in Cammy's house. The usual buzz of family chatter had died down, replaced by the soft murmur of voices carrying tales of the ruined wedding. Scattered around the room were wedding gifts stacked in corners, silently mocking the celebration that never was. Through the window, the glint of sunlight on water hinted at the pool where laughter should have echoed. Instead, there was only the sting of humiliation. Cammy walked in, his face tight. He nodded curtly to the family and friends gathered there, each pair of eyes seeming to hold a mix of sympathy, curiosity, and unspoken judgment. He could feel their gazes like fingers tracing every line on his face, dissecting the story etched there. This was his defeat laid bare, his failure written large for all to see. He heard his sister say, "Where did it all go wrong? I thought they were so in love." Another voice, a cousin perhaps, murmured, "Seems like Fina had something to say after all." Who knows what was going through that girl's mind? And then, unable to hold back, Aunt Zelda exclaimed, she was always too good to be true. Always running off to the gym or out with her girlfriends. Never once did she come to church with me. No wonder it didn't last. Their words, though soft, were like stones tossed into a still pond, creating ripples that spread far and wide. Each ripple a fresh stab of pain in Cammy's chest. Aunt Zelda rose, her tone softening. "Camille, my darling, why don't you sit down for a bit? You must be exhausted." Her gaze held concern, but the pity in her eyes was a fresh wound to his pride. He wanted to lash out, to tell them to stop speculating, but he found himself unable to speak. The silence that followed was thick with questions and judgments, leaving Cammy feeling exposed, trapped in a cage made of their pitying stares. Meanwhile, miles away, Fina poured out her pain to her friend Oman, recounting the events of the day before, her voice shaking with barely restrained tears. "I can't believe it, man. After all the planning, all the money spent, everything was ruined because of one lie. One damn lie." She looked at her hands, twisting in her lap. "It's not just the wedding, Anna. It's been years of chasing a dream that turned into a nightmare. The silent racism, the glass ceiling, the way success tastes like ashes when your heart aches for home. I'm tired, Anna. So tired." Fina took a shaky breath, pushing back the suffocating memories. "I want to go back, Anna. I want to go home." She confessed, surprised by the tears that flowed freely now. The dam within her had broken. "I never told anyone this before, but I've hated this country sometimes. Not because it hasn't given me opportunities, but because those opportunities have cost me my soul. Do you know what it feels like to excel in a land that barely acknowledges your existence? To be praised by people who look at you as a token, a box to tick rather than a human being? All this time, all this effort, does it really mean anything when I feel like an outsider looking in?" Her voice catching, Fina continued, "My parents left Talata in shame. We never went back. I never said goodbye to my father under that wide shade of the baobab tree in Talata, never sipped mango juice under the watchful eyes of our ancestors. Never heard Nana Baramusu's booming laughter again. Never felt the warmth of home. How can I have worked so hard to build a life here when a part of me has always yearned to be somewhere else? How can I have chased the American dream when my heart has always called me back to Sierra Leone?" Her words tumbling over each other in a rush to be heard, Fina cried, "I want to go back, Anna. I want to set things straight with my past." Fina's outburst hung in the air long after she fell silent, a testament to the silent struggles and sacrifices that immigrants often endure in their pursuit of a better life. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows in Camille's house, he found himself enveloped by the growing sense of dread. He could hear the murmurs of his relatives, each word a pinprick to his already burdened soul. But amidst the cacophony of whispers, one particular conversation cut through the noise like a shard of glass. "Did you see the way she looked at him, Mama, when she walked out? Full of hate. That child never liked my Cammy," and Zelda's voice hissed through the gathering, reaching his ears. "I told you, she wasn't right for him. Always running off to her fancy parties, never spending time with us." No wonder it ended. His mother's sigh, heavy with disappointment, cut through the chatter. "Oh, Lord, we've been through this before with his brother. Another broken engagement, another family torn apart. Why does it have to be my Cammy?" Their words struck him like physical blows, each syllable echoing the disappointment they felt in him. But beneath the surface of their disapproval, Cammy sensed a deeper emotion, a weariness born out of repeated hurts. The disappointment in their voices wasn't just about him or his choices. It was the weary sigh of parents who'd seen too many shattered dreams. Suddenly, he remembered a face from his past, a young woman named Anish Kamutari. Years ago, she'd shown up at his door claiming his sister had sent her. He'd laughed it off, dismissing her claims that she had a child of his. Back then, his life had been focused on climbing the social ladder. Such accusations were nothing but distractions, threats to his carefully crafted future. As the memories resurfaced, he recalled how he'd sent her away with empty promises. The encounter had left a fleeting discomfort, quickly buried under layers of ambition and new conquests. But now, as his family's disappointment pressed in on him, those buried feelings threatened to resurface. Driven by a sudden surge of determination, Cammy excused himself from his relatives' scrutiny. With a tight smile plastered on his face, he retreated to his room. There, amidst the familiar confines of his space, he allowed himself to be consumed by a whirlwind of emotions. Anger flared at his own naivety, at how his ambition had blinded him to the possibility of fatherhood. Shame washed over him for how he'd treated Anishka all those years ago. And then there was the stark realization that his current relationship might be hanging by a thread, possibly due to his past mistakes. Just as the night deepened, mirroring the turmoil in his soul, his phone lit up. The caller ID showed a name and number he hadn't seen in years. With a deep breath, he answered, "Hello." On the other end of the line, a young man's voice, tinged with both hope and desperation, broke the silence. "Is this Mr. Campbell?" Across town, Fina awoke in the middle of the night, her dreams filled with faces of loved ones long gone. She missed them all, their laughter, their stories, their very presence. But most of all, she missed the comforting weight of belonging. The next morning dawned bright and clear, mirroring the resolve that had settled in Fina's heart. She knew it was time to say goodbye to the life she'd been building and embrace the journey back to her roots. Despite the fear that gnawed at her, she was ready to face it. Her thoughts drifted to Cammy. Would he be as resolute about facing his own problems? She hoped so, not just for Glenn's sake, but for Cammy's soul. Their lives, once intertwined by destiny, now faced separate paths, each leading towards an uncertain future. Meanwhile, Cammy found himself frozen by indecision. The news of his potential son, Glenn, had thrown his world into chaos. But instead of embracing the situation, he'd been paralyzed by fear. What would people say? How would his reputation survive the scandal? These thoughts had choked his actions, keeping him from doing what was right. But as the day wore on, a change came over him. Driven by an inner resolve, he picked up his phone, dialing the number of Glenn, the young man who might just be his son. On the other end of the line, Glenn's voice, though weak, held a quiet strength that mirrored his own. They spoke for hours, talking about everything and nothing, finding common ground and shared silences. By the end of the call, Cammy felt a connection, a bond that went beyond blood. It was time for him to step up, to be the father Glenn needed. He knew it wouldn't be easy. There would be battles fought in boardrooms and whispers that echoed through society. But he was no longer afraid. He had Glenn, and that was all that mattered. As the sun set, painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Fina stood at the airport, ready to embark on her journey back to Sierra Leone. Beside her, Cammy stood tall, his earlier bravado replaced by a quiet dignity. Their paths were diverging, but their journeys were far from over. Both of them carried the weight of their past and the uncertainty of their future, yet as they said their goodbyes, there was a shared understanding. The journey home wasn't just about physical distance. It was about healing old wounds, facing forgotten truths and discovering the strength that lay within them. When Fina lands in Freetown, the city greets her with a whirlwind of noise, dust and energy. Streets bustle with taxis honking, hawkers shouting, women balancing basins of goods on their heads. It feels both familiar and strange, like returning to a house that has been rearranged while you were away. But there are constants: the scent of grilled fish, the taste of spicy peanut stew, the vibrant colours of flowing bubas. And then there is Edna. Fina throws her arms around her best friend, who hugs her tight. "You have grown, my sister. You have grown so much." Edna laughs, shaking her head. "And look at you. Still as stubborn as ever. I told you not to come alone. You know how dangerous it can be for a woman traveling on her own." Fina pulls away, meeting Edna's gaze. "I had to come alone, Anna. I need to go back to Talaba." Edna's face clouds over. "Talaba, but why? You know what they did to your family. Why would you want to go back there?" Fina bites her lip, unsure how to explain the restless ache inside her, the feeling that something was missing, a piece of her soul that had always been a part of her story. She turns away, hiding the vulnerability in her eyes. "I have to go back, Anna. It is where I belong." Days pass in a blur of activity as Fina navigates the bustling streets of Freetown, searching for answers, trying to fill the hollow space within her. She visits relatives, attends a traditional ceremony, and listens to old stories of her village, Talaba. But nothing eases the longing in her heart. One evening, sitting on a veranda overlooking the ocean, Fina speaks to Edna. "I keep thinking about my initiation. About what might have happened if Baba didn't pull me out of the bush. Do you think I would have become an outcast like Mama says, a woman without a story, a woman without a soul?" Edna takes Fina's hand. "Your father saved you, Fina. He chose you over tradition. Don't ever forget that." But Fina can't help but wonder. She realizes that her journey is not complete. She cannot find peace in Freetown while her story remains unfinished, while the call of Talaba echoes in her soul. She must go back to the village where her story began and where it broke. The road to Talaba is long and rough, lined with dust, bushland, and the echoes of her childhood. Each mile brings a rush of memories, both joyful and painful. As the village comes into view, Fina's heart thunders in her chest. Will they accept her again? After all, she is the daughter of Amodu, the man who dared to defy the sacred grove. The villagers eye her curiously, their gazes a mixture of suspicion, curiosity and guarded warmth. Some whisper, some point. Others pretend she isn't there. Fina walks with her head held high, her steps firm. She is home, and yet she is a stranger in a familiar land. Life in the village seems unchanged. Women pound rice in mortars, children chase each other through the dust, men mend fishing nets under the shade of a baobab tree. The rhythm of survival goes on, untouched by the passage of time. But for Fina, every corner holds a memory, every tree a silent witness to her past. She sees her grandmother Baramusu's stern face etched against the morning mist. She hears her father Amodu's defiant laughter ringing through the village square. And she feels her mother Nabu's gentle touch brushing against her cheek. As days turn into weeks, Fina settles into a routine. She helps the women pound rice, gathers firewood with the children, and sits in the evenings listening to the elders share stories of the past. She learns about the history of her village, its struggles and triumphs, its traditions and beliefs. And slowly, ever so slowly, the villagers begin to accept her, to include her in their lives. They tell her stories of her family, of her father's bravery, of her mother's kindness, of her grandmother's wisdom. She sees the respect and admiration in their eyes, and it fills her with a sense of pride and belonging. But there is still a part of her story that remains hidden, a wound that refuses to heal. Fina has not yet returned to the sacred grove. She knows that the journey to the grove will be difficult. She can feel the tension in the village, the fear that still lingers in the hearts of the people. But she also knows that she cannot heal, truly heal, until she confronts the past. So one morning, with the sunrise painting the sky in hues of gold and crimson, Fina sets out for the grove. The path is overgrown, the air thick with anticipation. As she steps into the clearing, the trees seem to close in around her, forming a circle of silent witnesses. The forest whispers with unseen presences, and Fina's heart pounds in her chest. She is here to ask for forgiveness, not just for herself, but for her father and for her family. She kneels on the damp soil, her hands trembling, her tears soaking into the earth. She closes her eyes, and when she opens them, she is no longer in Freetown or London. She is here in the sacred grove, where everything began and where everything changed. Her voice catches in her throat as she begins to speak, her words tumbling over each other in a torrent of emotion. She tells the spirits of the forest about her journey, about her life in Freetown, about her search for belonging and understanding. She tells them of her father's love, her mother's strength, and her grandmother's wisdom. She tells them of the pain and confusion that have haunted her dreams, the anger and resentment that have burned within her heart. And then she asks for forgiveness. She apologizes for her father's defiance, for the division he caused, for the pain he endured. She apologizes for the silence that followed, for the secrets that were buried, for the stories that were lost. And she asks for forgiveness for herself, for the times she turned away from her roots, for the parts of her soul that she left behind. As the sun dips below the horizon, casting long shadows through the trees, Fina rises to her feet. She feels lighter somehow, as if a weight has been lifted from her shoulders. The past is not gone, but it no longer controls her. The broken rope of her life is slowly being tied back together. The days that follow are filled with a newfound clarity. Fina spends her time in Talaba walking barefoot through the tall grass, listening to the birdsong, watching the children play. She feels a deep sense of connection to the land, to the people, to the spirits of the forest. She knows that she is home, not just because this is where she was born, but because this is where she belongs. She finds Issa living in a small hut on the edge of the village. Her sister's life has been hard. She is thin and weary, her clothes tattered and faded. But there is a fire in her eyes, a strength in her spirit that reminds Fina of their mother. They embrace, and in that moment, Fina knows that their bond is unbreakable. No matter what life has thrown at them, they have survived. And now they have each other again. As the weeks turn into months, Fina feels a sense of peace settle over her. She has found her story, not in a single moment of revelation, but in the everyday moments of life in Talaba. She wakes up each morning with the sunrise, feeling the cool breeze on her skin and the soft earth beneath her feet. She spends her days working in the fields, gathering food, tending to the sick and sharing stories with the elders. And she ends her evenings with the sound of drums echoing through the village, the rhythmic beat calling her to dance. In the quiet of her nights, she listens to the voices of the ancestors, and she hears her own voice, stronger and clearer than ever before. She knows that her path was never easy, but she wouldn't trade it for the world. The scars of her past, her interrupted initiation, her father's defiance, her family's exile remain. But they no longer define her. Instead, they stand as proof of her endurance, her resilience, her strength. Fina's journey began with a myth, the story of Kumba Kagbo, a child who strayed but taught her people through her struggle. And now her journey brings her back to that same myth, a reminder that paths that must not die, the path of her people, her story, her identity, a path that led her through pain, exile and searching, but ultimately brought her home. Thank you for watching. If you liked the video, please give it a thumbs up and subscribe for more content.